Welcome back, Diecast OutKast here. Today we are doing episode 17. It's a redline Torero. This is going to be a restoration. I believe the casting came out in 1969. I was scrolling through Facebook and I seen an auction and I had a few red lines in it and I bid on a few of them and I didn't win any of them but this Torero. And when I seen it I was like, man, that is an ugly car. That thing was beat. But I still bought it. And this is what I did to it. It appears to be some kind of a Charger Mark III concept car. And it looks a whole lot like the Matchbox version. This looks like a Spectraflame orange, which was common in these cars. But it's not going to stay orange. I think we're going to go with a different color today. Off camera, I went ahead and drilled out the base. The body was torn up pretty bad. It had a lot of pitting, a lot of toning. You can see where they drug it across the concrete or whatever. But the actual body itself had no dents or no breaks or anything, so it was great. The base was tarnished black. It's probably the worst I've ever seen. And then the interior was real dirty, and the glass was scratched all to pieces. I didn't know if I'd be able to save it or not. So let's get down to stripping and see what we can do with this thing. Guys, this stripper is very potent, so make sure you use a mask and a well-ventilated area. Doesn't take long to start bubbling on this old Spectraflame. That old bug's going to be high pretty soon. After we get done playing here, we're going to take it to the sink and run it under some warm water and this brass wire brush. Now we can see how bad this body really is. Man, it is pitted up. So we're going to try to see what we can do and wet sand it with some 800 grit sandpaper. It turned out fairly decent. It wasn't good enough for me, so I decided to go back over it with a wet 2000 grit sandpaper. After this, I wanted to even out all the scratches, so I went back over it with some 4/0 steel wool. I started out building big cars, 1-to-1 scale. The first car I ever restored was a 1980 Camaro. It was a Berlinetta, but I went ahead and did the Z28 stripes on it because I liked the color of it. That was my first paint job. My second paint job was this 72 Chevelle. It was Cortez Silver, and I spent days cutting buffing on it. It turned out like glass. We're going to give it a good polish with the 4/0 steel wool. I'm scrubbing it dry here, but off camera, I used some Dawn dish soap and scrubbed it a little bit more. The Dawn acts like a lubrication and it makes it last a lot longer. Going from 800 to 2000 grit sandpaper and then going over it with the 4/0 steel wool. It's going to be smooth enough to polish out like a mirror, so we're going to take some mother's polish and a polishing wheel and see what happens. Oh, this is my favorite part, polishing it and looking at the results. As beat up as this car was, it turned out absolutely gorgeous. You can see a few little flaws here and there. You can see where the toning is. You can see all different kinds of issues. But at the end of the day, this thing turned out way better than I ever thought it would. Remember how scraped up and pitted it was? It's amazing what some sanding and polishing will do. This will be a great base for doing a Spectraflame style candy paint. I had no idea what color to paint this, and I got to talking to a buddy of mine, William, Mr. K7, and he suggested we do purple. So we might as well do some purple. I'm going to mix up some of my homemade batch of candy. So we're going to go with some clear coat. This is actually a 4-to-1 mixture. I did put the hardener in later. And then we took a pipette and did 2 pipettes full of the purple ink. I stir it vigorously until it dissolves into the clear coat. I've had a few of you guys ask me about the Harbor Freight guns and if I like them or not. Yeah, I like them, but I don't do any small details. I paint them like I would paint a spray gun with a car, so they turn out really good. This is my first coat of the candy clear, and then this is 5 coats later. It is not as dark as the Spectraflame purple is, but man, I absolutely love how this turned out. It's actually one of my favorite colors. Now it's time to drop this nasty black base into the lime away. You can see the bubbling action here. Get rid of the oxidation. We're going to take a brush wire brush and scrape this off. Wipe it down with a paper towel, and man, this thing turned out shiny and new. The video doesn't do it justice, but it turned out great. Now onto the dreaded, nasty, pitted glass. Oh, this thing was terrible. Since I already had it out, we're going to do the same thing we did with the body. We're going to do some wet 800 grit sandpaper, then go back over it with some 2000 grit sandpaper. I learned if you're going to do the pledge treatment to sand it down and polish it without any kind of chemical, and then dip it in a pledge, and it will not beat off, but it will coat evenly. I found out later that it's got a crack in it, but I'm not going to buy new glass for it. We're just going to put the Pledge Floor Care in this little cup here, dip it in there, and see what happens. Other than a crack, it looks good as new. The interior is in good shape, but we're going to go ahead and clean it with some soap and water. I really like these microfiber cloths. They're fairly cheap and they don't harm anything. So now we're going to take a look at what we started with. The 1969 casting Redline's Torero from Hot Wheels. And if you liked the video, please subscribe, comment, thumbs up. And after all that polishing and painting, here is the final result. Considering what we started with, I am extremely happy of how this turned out. The paint turned out good, the glass turned out good, the base turned out good. Put the new wheels on it, it turned out pretty good. It's not perfect by all means, but I'm really happy with the result. Let me know what you think in the comments. Stay tuned and you will see some details of our upcoming challenge, the Paint It Pink Challenge, airing in October. Here's a before and after comparison. And coming up is the list of our Paint It Pink Challenge, airing October 12th. That's a huge list. Catch me on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat. Make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, comment.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.